You are listening to Scary Story from Coffin. The story I am going to tell today is about an incident that happened when Bill and his friends decided to go camping at a waterfall. Bill often went on solo trips into the forest, so he didn't expect that this time, camping by the waterfall, something would happen that would make him flee and seek help from a monk. The story is called It Follows. Before we dive into our scary story, we would like to ask everyone to like and subscribe to support us in continuing to bring you more terrifying tales in the future. The whole story must go back to around 2009. At that time, Bill was a young, energetic district officer who had just been appointed as a government official in a remote area. Those in this field know well that the work of district officers in some regions constantly involves field visits to investigate villagers' complaints. Because of the nature of his job, Bill unknowingly developed a love for traveling. On every holiday, he would take himself to spend the night at natural tourist spots. The same was true during the incident. After relocating to his hometown for a while, when a long holiday arrived, Bill planned to immerse himself in nature. His destination at that time was Waterfall Common Waterfall, as he saw that the forest there was still abundant and it was only a little over 100 kilometers from home. Staying there to recharge would be well worth the upcoming 3 to 4 day holiday. Being a nature lover, Bill always respected forest rules. He never neglected or disrespected these things. Whether the forest was near or far, remote or not, he could always survive because he was courteous and followed the traditions he was taught, paying respects to the spirits according to his beliefs. Bill had a strong belief in the supernatural since he was born and raised in the countryside, hearing such stories from childhood to adulthood. On the day of departure, Bill picked up 2 junior friends, Dan and Shia, for the trip. Their destination was Waterfall Common Waterfall, where they planned to camp and have meals for 2 nights. They had prepared barbecue grills and complete food supplies. Upon arrival, Bill did not forget to guide his juniors in performing a ritual to inform the local spirits according to their beliefs. When dinner time arrived and the food was ready, Bill, acting as the cook, shouted to the other 2 who were gathering firewood, "Come, come, come. Let's eat before the food gets cold." Dan and Shia put down their tasks and walked towards the tempting food aroma. Before they could reach, a sudden cracking sound of dry branches breaking came from the forest, making everyone look around in curiosity, as if someone had stepped on fallen branches. Within seconds, they dismissed the noise, guessing it might be an animal wandering nearby. Bill's gathering started around 5 p.m. and ended around 8 p.m., with everyone retiring to their tents. Around midnight, Bill was awakened by the sound of something touching his tent. He saw an outline resembling human fingers pressing against the tent fabric, as if someone was caressing it from outside. Suddenly, he heard indistinct whispers of several people, though he couldn't make out what they were saying. The first night ended, leaving Bill puzzled. In the morning of the second day, he learned from his 2 juniors that they had experienced the same thing but didn't make a sound or peek outside their tents, not wanting to spoil the mood. Their activities continued with fun and appreciation of the natural beauty, making the trip worthwhile. The second night passed without incident. When it was time to leave the forest, after packing up, Bill called his juniors to get in the car, saying his usual phrase, "Let's go. Get in the car." It was dusk, nearly dark. By the time they navigated out of the forest, the orange glow of the setting sun had been replaced by darkness. As they drove onto the main road, streetlights cast an amber glow, and reflective signs shone as Bill drove past. Everything seemed normal, and perhaps the beauty of nature had made them forget the first night's fright. Bill turned into a gas station to refuel. When the driver's side window rolled down, a female attendant approached and gasped loudly, as if she saw something non-human in the car. The group looked at each other in confusion as other staff rushed over to help the shocked attendant, who had collapsed to the ground. The staff asked what happened, but the shocked attendant couldn't speak, still trembling in fear. Bill and his friends got out to check the situation. After a while, the female attendant finally spoke, saying that while she approached to offer service, she glanced at the back seat and saw another passenger's face. This face was peeking between the front seats, but it wasn't normal. It was smeared with dark mud. Her reaction convinced everyone that she truly saw something terrifying, as she burst into tears after telling her story. The three men were left wondering whose face was covered in mud, as they all looked clean without any dirt on their faces. But at that moment, Bill suddenly thought of the most likely possibility. It might be a spirit or something that had followed them out from the forest where they had camped. Remembering the strange events of the first night, every hair on his arms stood on end simultaneously. He silently prayed that what he thought wasn't true because the experience in the forest was already terrifying enough. If it had followed them out like this, they would probably end up with a severe fright. After filling up the gas tank, Bill started driving again, trying to push the gas station attendant's story out of his mind. The two younger friends in the back seat, who had been chatting loudly earlier, fell silent after leaving the gas station, creating a gloomy atmosphere inside the car. As Bill sped up to overtake a trailer truck, the headlights from the large vehicle behind illuminated the inside of their car briefly. Instinctively, Bill glanced at the rearview mirror. In the fleeting moment of brightness, he saw a mysterious figure sitting between his two friends in the back seat, exactly as the gas station attendant had described. To avoid making the situation worse, he decided to keep quiet and focus on driving. Bill continued to drive without looking at the rearview mirror to avoid losing focus until, after about 4 to 5 kilometers, one of the friends in the back suddenly shouted loudly. When asked, the friend explained that he had felt something like a human hand touch his ankle. He used his phone's flashlight to check the space between his leg and the seat, but found only a black rubber mat, not the suspected object that caused him to cry out. Bill's heart raced uncontrollably upon hearing that his friend also sensed the presence of something, confirming that the muddy figure he saw in the mirror was not a hallucination. But before Bill's anxiety could subside, he felt something like human skin touch his leg. Fortunately, he managed to keep his composure and continued driving until he safely brought his friends back home. Bill and his friends admitted feeling relieved the moment they stepped onto the ground in their neighborhood. The two friends then went their separate ways, leaving Bill to wonder if the entity that followed them had intended to harm or target one of them specifically. 2 days after the holiday, around 9 p.m., Bill was upstairs using his computer. His house faced the main village road, with a sidewalk and a public bench across the street. This area was usually busy with people exercising and using the small park, a community gathering spot. Bill, sitting at his computer on the second floor, could see the park. He would look away from the screen every 30 minutes to rest his eyes by gazing at the park. However, before his eyes could wander far, he noticed a mysterious man trying to climb a lamppost near his fence. At first, he thought it was a thief, but upon closer inspection, he realized the man resembled the figure reflected in his car window. While Bill stared at the mysterious man, the man fell from the lamppost and vanished instantly. This sight made Bill recall the day they returned from the forest, believing that the strange occurrences might have resulted from his careless call for his friends to get in the car without mentioning their names. After this realization, he rushed downstairs and warned his family to always call people by name when inviting them into their home, to avoid calling out aimlessly. His family looked at him in confusion, but Bill gave no further explanation, fearing they would think he was losing his mind. By 11 p.m. that same night, the once lively park was now empty, illuminated only by the streetlights. Bill left his chair to check the lamppost near his fence but saw no mysterious figure. Instead, he heard the sound of metal creaking from an empty swing in the quiet park. The swing swayed as if someone had just left it. Bill quickly shut the window and went to bed, trying to ignore the distant sound of dogs howling intermittently. The next morning, Bill's first thought was to seek advice from a monk on handling these unsettling events. As he stepped out of his house, he noticed mud stains on the lamppost and his gate, as if the entity had tried to enter but was held back by some protective force. Bill hurried to his car, parked near his house, anxious about the entity's presence. He called in sick and drove straight to a temple where he had previously visited with a retired district officer to pay respects to an elder monk. The drive took about 30 minutes, and upon arriving at the temple, he felt fortunate to see the monk sweeping leaves in front of his moderately sized cottage. He recalled the district officer mentioning that the monk was often busy with other duties, so seeing him there felt like a stroke of luck. Bill got out of the car and walked toward the monk. Before he could say anything, the monk turned to him and spoke calmly, asking why he was there so early in the morning and suggesting that Bill go sit quietly and wait at the monk's quarters. About 10 minutes later, the monk came up. As he ascended the 6 to 7 steps to the quarters, his words made Bill's hair stand on end again. The monk asked Bill, who was waiting upstairs, what he had done to cause this entity to follow him. Bill then recounted the events that he believed were the cause. The monk listened intently before disappearing into the quarters for a while and returning with a piece of white cloth. He instructed Bill to lay the cloth on the veranda, then told Bill to lie down on his back on the cloth and fold his hands, with his head facing west. When Bill lay down, the monk wrapped the cloth around Bill's body as if he were a corpse. The monk then tied sacred threads around Bill's feet and head and called another monk to assist with the ritual. After securing everything tightly, the monk instructed Bill to keep his hands folded and eyes closed, not to open them until told. The monk then began chanting mantras for quite some time. While lying there with his eyes closed, Bill heard someone walking around him. The monk instructed the other monk to help turn Bill's body to face east and began chanting again. Once finished, the monk told the other monk to untie the sacred threads and instructed Bill to open his eyes. The monk blessed Bill and sprinkled holy water on him, announcing that the ritual was complete. He advised Bill to be mindful of his words in the future, noting that his recent misfortune was due to his declining fate and to live carefully from then on. After finishing his advice, the monk told Bill to fold the cloth and put it in an old plastic bag. As Bill stood up and looked at the cloth, he was astonished to see muddy handprints where his back had been, even though there had been no such marks when he first laid it out. He turned to the monk with a questioning look, about to ask about the marks, but the monk preempted him, saying that some things were better left unknown as knowing would only cause unnecessary worry. He emphasized that Bill should speak, think, and live with mindfulness. This left Bill pondering what the monk had meant and what the spirit wanted. Deep down, he knew it stemmed from his careless call without mentioning names. Since the ritual, Bill had never encountered any strange occurrences involving the Muddy Man again.